and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this special video edition with me today here in these beautiful Alps. As you can see, I took a beautiful hike today and I was guided for a few days now because I've had such an intense time here in this alpine vortex, which is beautiful, but it makes no difference where we are on the planet right now. As you know, I've shared in a previous video about the immense deforestation, and not just that, but the way things are being done and the way our planet is being treated at this time. There's quite a few people who are well aware of that, and recently Spirit shared with me that we've kind of reached, planetary based, a point of getting very close to that which we can call, you know, nature has a state of reversibility and irreversibility in the way that, you know, how much damage we do, and how much damage we can do, although it's not, as you know, recommended for us to do that. The thing is that we are very much speeding up the energy of human interventions in terms of the natural environment. And as you know, as a pillar of creation and as a guardian of this sacred vortex and a channeler of this Elohim consciousness, I am in a way a vehicle for that, you know, to share these messages. But it's sometimes very strange, you know, how we can only influence the field of the people who are already aware. Although today's message is how they've shared it with me, it's almost like an invitation for everyone, because a lot of times we think, okay, we're doing our part, we're recycling, we're doing this and that, we're watching what we're purchasing. This is beyond that. This is not just about that which affects our close reality, our intimate circle or sacred space. We've probably all reached a point where we are seeing daily interferences. If we are going out in nature a lot, if you're living in the city, you're not noticing that as much as those of us do who live outside most of the time. And we live in these pristine environments. Well, they used to be pristine, not so much anymore. You gotta really make an effort to find a sacred spot that has that kind of vortex energy without too much human intervention. There is a positive human intervention, as you know, and there's a negative human intervention and contribution. This is what I talk about today. This is what they're guiding me to do, and they've shared with me that we've reached a point where even if we are aware of things like that, you know, sometimes people go like, well, there's activists doing that, or there's people who are doing that work, I don't need to do anything, I'm aware, oh, that's enough. They're sharing with me that it's no longer just enough. You know, we've all reached a point where we have to become, in our own way, activists. That doesn't mean we all do the same things. But we've reached a point, this is beyond just our personal undertakings and the daily lives we're leading, whether we're buying organics, you know, not purchasing so much, because this consumerism is a hoax. It's a mentality of creating more matter out of, you know, just taking from nature to create more matter, which just then becomes trash. We don't really have to take so much from nature to live in environmental harmony and interdependency and interconnection with our life. So they've shared with me now everyone has to find a way to become an activist, and find in your heart a space the way you do it. Not everyone will do that the same way. For me personally, I'm a pillar, so we work at the essence level, which means we are working with the energy. What I do in my daily work, when I go around and I walk and I see these areas, and I always encounter these, you know, how to share this, these scenarios. In my 5 years of living here in the Alps, I remember the first year, it was amazing. It was like living on this isolated island paradise, you know, like, wow, it's so remote. It felt like that. It felt so pure and clean and so rural in a way. And nowadays it's like, wait a minute, they're trying to bring the cities here. What are they trying to do? You know, now it's, the interventions are becoming daily. They're not just, you know, yearly, or sometimes they're doing this or fixing that. Now, in our country, people are obsessed with creating these, you know, like roundabouts, like just competing who will have more. And, you know, like every village now has to have a roundabout. I mean, there is a certain amount of this interferences that nature can withhold, can withstand, so there's still balance. And so when I do these daily walks and I encounter things, and I experience this feeling when I have a lot of sadness coming and washing through me, and I feel this sadness of the elements, and you know, they're kind of disappointed over where this thing is going, because I feel so much hope was planted in the seed of humanity. And there's this also a message that, you know, we've just talked about this with a friend, how we all blame the rulers or the ruling elite, whatever it is. Well, they're creating these laws that then we're responding to them. Well, the thing is, people have become, well, I'm not talking about the people who are aware. I'm talking about the people who are still on the level of being primates. I don't know, they're calling it like that. Just, it's like responsive to whatever is shown to them. It's like someone says, this is now good technology, you got to use that. Okay, you know, it's like a robotic response. And these people are just so passive. A lot of them I see, they just don't care anymore. And when I do this work, it's at the essence level to channel more life force at the level of the planetary connection, so that it can go and it can move and it can travel, so it can elevate the right people, it can bring about the right tools, sometimes even delays for certain technologies that they want to impose on our planet. As you know, now there is this massive agenda with the 5G, supposedly 5G, but it's not 5G. It's almost like 1,000 multiple of the number, which we before said, well, okay, the maximum is 3G. So it's a lot of hoaxes, and I've been trying to read a few articles how they're presenting it. And they're presenting it to people like, oh, this is the best thing, you know, it's going to be so super fast. And nowadays you can't have fast enough internet, especially if you're outside and there's too many people with smart devices. So we got to keep the maximum capacity expanding. And the thing is, this technology is so dangerous. It is almost like gridding the whole planet with this mass WAM frequency that's distorted, that is cancerogenous. It's in a way also causing genocide in a way, because it acts as this frequency that disrupts our natural rhythms and harmonic nature of our bodies within. So there's almost like this threshold whether people will allow this or not, and it's not what they do, it's how we respond to it. So if the collective says, okay, sounds a good thing, you know, I gotta keep my phone updated, I gotta keep my connection super fast. And my friend said, well, people are acting like technology is God. And the thing is, in the old days of Atlantis, technology was being, you know, it was in a way like it was king, you know, or the queen. And connection with nature was seen as primitive. And sometimes it's still seen like that, because we haven't found a way to synthesize that, so that the science part of the whole divine equation is a natural science, is a science embedded or taken from the resources of nature, which in some parts, in some cases, it's being experimented with, but we're still being sold things that, you know, it's almost like a cycle that used to be, and it led to the destruction of what we know, the civilization of Atlantis. Is repeating itself, because, you know, time is cyclical and certain events are now coming to the rise so we could witness them. So when I actually had a little mini conversation with Spirit, because I was also worried, I said, wait a minute, it's not supposed to come to all of that. How will those of us who do this channeling work, and we're here to bring these higher frequencies, well, how will we do that? And I was shown that we can do a lot. First, always working at the essence level, which means life force. It's life force mastery, it's life force channeling, it's assisting this. And someone I knew once had a dream, and then I shared it with a friend, and she said she had a similar dream herself. And it was that my dream was, I mean, the one who dreamt it for me when I was in it, was that I was standing in a field. It was kind of like a field after the destruction, and there was holes in the ground and people there laying, and I was trying to help them, and I was doing some sort of wizard work. And she said she had a dream herself when she, after this destruction, she laid on the ground at a certain ancestral spot that had a little you know, like a remnant there, and she channeled this intense sexual energy coming through, and then there was others coming in who were doing the same. And there's, you know, we are continuously drawing forth from that destruction scenario. Okay, so if we come to a certain point, we're going to be destroyed again. There's just two options, you know, ascend or destroy. What Spirit shared with me is that this time is different because there's tinier circles, you know, that it's almost like, you know, when time is cyclical, but it's also a spiral, right? So you come around a circle, and there's researchers who have calculated astrologically how this is divided. I think 1/4 of the whole zodiacal year, which is, you know, is one era, around 2,100 years, something like that. As we know, these ages, you know, from Piscean to Aquarian. So 1/4 would be around 540 years, something like that. I don't know. So anyway, in this matter, what's happening is now is mini cycles that, you know, are completing now. They're also encapsulated within a greater cycle, and I've explained that in my previous video update about the new Earth destiny. So that's why we can't foretell or predict, and no prophecy can, even if it's very super ancient, because this time is really different. So I've been shown that no one truly knows, and we're not supposed to, because it's going in the way that we start to trust this higher divine plan, which does not denote being passive. It means we're active. We are active activists, but in a way through life we're surrendering, not like through this worry, oh my God, you know, I got to change the world because it's all going to be a doomsday scenario again. They show me that it's actually a win-win scenario that we can't see yet because it's something new. And we do make conclusions every day. Sometimes things remind us, or we will feel a certain energy. We might feel a certain cycle and that repetition, but it's not necessarily the outcome of the whole, how it is contained within a greater picture or the bigger picture scenario. So this is the second thing I wanted to share with you, and how important it is nowadays to really stay observant with whatever is happening, to channel our life force there. I know I don't like to do, you know, when I go somewhere, I want to go to a pure sacred space like this right now, right? It's super beautiful. But there's also times when I walk around a devastated area and I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing here? Which I already know. So they've actually, in our village, they're going to lay some new cables, some new high-tech, I don't know, electricity, something I didn't even know, but I've suspected. And this week we've actually ran into this old man here in the village, and we know he knows a lot. So I asked him, I said, hey, can you please tell me what they're doing with those cables and why they took all those trees down? Because it was like this huge band of trees, you know, like this whole wide band of trees was cut down, and I think they're going to continue. And he said, yeah, it's this new high-tech electricity something. They're kind of like pulling it all the way to Italy. You know, we have a borderline with Italy, very close to where I live. And he said, well, you know how it was back in the old days? We worked as one with nature, and he has this old retro, you know, this old school forestry education. And he said, in the schools, they've been always teaching us that the wood, you know, that you get from the trees is only like the 4th or the 5th function of the tree. There's, you know, the trees with their roots, they're holding the ground together. They're harmoniously making sure that the precipitation wave of the water is not over flooding. And they're actually helping for the water levels to be maintained as well. Also, as you know, I've shared with you this before, trees are cosmic antennas. So when the lightnings come, they're helping to stabilize and ground this energy. Without the kind of amount of trees, you know, that's no more in alignment, what do we get, right? We get more natural disasters, which are truly not natural. There is a difference between that natural, cyclical, you know, kind of like a balanced state, and that which we would say was a human intervention. It's a human intrusion. That's a better word, because intervention could be very good, right? Divine intervention. And a lot of people are saying, well, there is no way out, only through this solar event, divine intervention. And we all can feel that way sometimes, because we see the evidence of it every day now, what people are doing, because they've actually cut themselves so away, so far off from this natural connection that, let's say, the majority doesn't even care anymore. We live right next to the natural park, which is our national park. And it makes no difference, believe me. They're doing whatever they want. So this old man, he described to me this whole process with the trees, because what happens is the first stage is the first problem is the illegalized, or sometimes these, you know, private workers or private, what are they called? Entrepreneurs, I don't know, these private cutting downs of trees that are not being done educationally, you know, through the right education. I mean, they're not being done the proper way, and it causes immense devastation. Because he told me, you know, when you have a forest, if you don't do like that, which maintains, you know, for the maintenance of the forest, which is done the proper way, is, he told me, you have to eliminate the little tiny weeds and things, you know, we call them weeds, you know, tree weeds, the kind of tinier bushes and trees, so that the bigger trees have the room to breathe, so they don't just grow up, you know, they kind of don't spread, so they just go up and they become very slim or slender. So as you can see, what happens then if they cut it down the wrong way, he explained to me that phenomena. What happens is that also what they do, right? They just put the branches and what's that, tree bark around, and that is excellent food for the tree bug. So they just, if they just leave it there, it'll be spreading the bug even more. So what they do, and they don't cut down the proper way, how it's supposed to be through maintenance, so it's just for profit. And you know, they're not doing it like little here, little there. It's like they just come and cut off everything. The trees that are left, if they're, especially if they're barren, they will get broken through either water, precipitation, and of course through winter. We have, you know, massive amounts of snow here in the Alps. So there's this huge problem, and whatever's left, the tree bug eats, right? So then they say, oh, we have this tree bug now, we have to eliminate the trees around the area of the infected tree. So they use actually the tree bug as an excuse to cut down more trees. What here in our country, what we do, and he also told me that we sell the wood and we sell it to the neighbor countries, you know, like Austria. So they whatever they do, they put it back here to furnish it somehow. I don't know what they do, you know, like when they refine it in a way. And then whatever we get in those stores, which are these mega markets, when you can buy furniture, it's all our wood, but it's sold to us, and it's actually from, you know, this is just to make a bunch of people rich, or, you know, it's like have money, and it's like trade with something it's not supposed to be for us to have trade with. It's getting worse and worse because of the element of survival, greed, and as you know, again, it goes back to consciousness. This is this consciousness of survival, through which people have been convinced and manipulated it. It's what it is. It's just how it is on this planet. And the thing is, those of us who work at the essence level, we're helping to raise the level of consciousness which is being raised. And if the consciousness or the quotient of light is not being raised fast enough in comparison to how much damage is being done to the planet, there will be some sort of intervention. And sometimes it's tinier interventions that make sure there's certain delays, you know, like if they're trying to now impose these 5G cables, they're going to make sure somehow there's certain delays and mishaps that occur, that it still things stay in alignment. And this is hard for us to see because none of us here on the planet see the bigger picture, which is earthly perspective and the above perspective with all the players, all the associations, all the scenarios all together. It's hard for us to see that as we're on Earth. As you know, we have these night meetings we have with our councils and things like that. We all do. Well, you don't remember. But when we have these inclinations to do something, let's say something bothers you, let's say in your environment something comes up and it bothers you, it means that if something bothers you, like if you see a piece of trash, it bothers you to see there, even, you pick it up, right? Not to necessarily say, well, I have an obligation, but it's natural for you because it bothers you, you pick it up. So this is how they're showing me, is with all these things, you know, you can use your voice, you can speak up, you can make articles, you can do videos, you can just talk to your friends, but whatever way, when information that comes through this light expansion, when it travels, it creates a reverberation of this non-passive energy, which is active but not through fear, so that we're engaging with this scenario actively, not through fear. So we recently with my friend, I was guided to say, let's do a short activation when we command the life force energy to create the right players, the right activists to come together. And because when we work from this light being level, we can do that. Because we're realizing we're not separate from source. We are the source that has a governing voice through us, but it's not through the fear tactics or modality. It's through your explosion of love, which is you have this higher vision. What do you envision this process? Because when we get hopeless, we say, oh, there's no hope, and I feel so powerless. I can do this, I can do that. I'm just this tiny human. They're doing this every day. Sometimes it happens overnight. We can't even do anything. The trees that they've actually cut down here for the cable, I'm telling you, it was literally over the night. I don't know what kind of machines they used, truly. Or, you know, my mother just recently in this local magazine, she saw this, it was almost like an advertisement. Now, what is required for people who are going into forestry and cutting down trees and just, yeah, bring your own tools and axes and all these things? Like, what are they advertising? It's like the little cutters, you know, just come, you know, come, bring your tools, the more the merrier, you know. It's like, what the heck is this? It's like, it's huge propaganda even. And as you know, people are sometimes left to not have enough work. Some people are non-employed and they use this as, oh, I can do that, you know, and they don't have the proper education. That's the problem. Like they actually taught in the old days. Nowadays, because not the right people are coming to the governmental structures, even people who have the right heart and education, sometimes, you know, they just cut them off. They don't stand a chance there. I remember here we have this council for this national park, right? And there was this woman who, she really loves nature and mountains, and she's really amazing. And she had all these lectures and videos throughout the years. And someone knew her because when I knew that guy, he was telling me he met her. And she was so sad and disappointed because the people there don't care anymore. They're just like, oh, you're just a woman, shut up, you know. It's like the real nature lovers, it's very hard for us to have our voice or to not be mocked. Or people usually just say the first thing they believe, the first thing we will be sold, that that's the reason why this is happening. Oh yeah, it's because of the tree bug. Whatever, whenever I ask someone here, why are these trees being cut? Yeah, it's the tree bug, you know. It's like, okay, that's like the last thing that's on the list. What was before it? Because the tree bug is just a messenger that the harmony was not there already. That's why it spread out. You know, when you take one element out of the equation, because nature is an ecosystem, it is a group consciousness. And because humans are no longer working at the group consciousness level as one team, we become so separate in our endeavors. You know, the one who cuts the trees only sees, I'm the one doing this job to get paid to cut the trees down. There's very few hard-based people who understand this is a whole process. This is not just for the profit. And there's this problem because we say, well, we're so spiritual, we only need to do the light thing and light work. Well, light is, when it travels through us, it becomes active in a way, sharing messages, sharing love. I don't know, getting the right people together. Sometimes we might feel powerless because we feel alone, we can't do anything. But look at nature. Nature works through synchronized unity, group consciousness, and as humans, we need to do the same for us to be in alignment with nature that's rising up to this level that always has been the way it is. But, you know, like the old school, these people used to have this, like a very natural wisdom that was just embedded within them. Now they've just cut this out from people. They don't just cut the trees down, they cut this off from people. Because of this scenario of technology is the king now. We got to do everything in our power to increase the technological development. I mean, whenever I'm being sold these images of a high-tech society, right, in these sci-fi movies, how it's all just, there's no nature there. Have you ever noticed that? It's just spacecraft and certain vehicles that are hovering and a bunch of metallic structures everywhere. It's like, it's not somewhere I live, sorry. I might say it's developed. Yeah, maybe technologically, but is it truly developed organically, which is the highest spiritual technology there is? No thanks. I'd rather go off planet. It's like we can't develop our natural resources and higher capabilities or spiritual abilities if we disconnect ourselves this way. So that was the greatest message they've been sharing with me. They also wanted to share with all who listen, who pay attention to these things, that yes, to be spiritual is not just to take care of your body, but your body moves around in time and space, right? They say, well, this is all a hologram, it's not real. In a way it is, and in a way it's also real, because we're making sure it is. We are participating in it. We're bringing the infusion of life force on the planet, so therefore it is real. So when we say, well, we just go to spirit if this happens, or we just go back to spirit if that happens, that's an error. Either way, we're good. Yes, but you don't understand when you say things like that, that life in creation as these high beings and those who are overseers, they see that every aspect of life, every element that was created is so important. And they always show me the same thing. It's humans who say, well, just how it is, you know, I don't care, I'm gonna reincarnate here or elsewhere, I don't mind. Well, if humans don't complete this, they're going to continue to reincarnate, even if not here, somewhere else. That, let's say, there would be similar challenges to overcome until you really see that as a source spark, you exist with other sparks, and you exist within the spark of life, which presents itself through the natural environment. And life is truly not intelligent when it's artificial, or artificial intelligence, things like that. I've been talking about this. It was the theme of this year, if you remember, life force. The theme of the year was life force intelligence. And what is not intelligent in that way becomes artificial intelligence eventually. And that's truly not intelligence, is controlled. It's when intelligence becomes a factor of control, an element of control, which is no longer that divine intelligence. It's artificial. That's why it's called that way. So whatever you're witnessing in your part of the world, they're sharing with me, you have a space of contribution. You know, I'm signed up for these Care to petitions. It's nice to, in a way, be informed what's happening around the world. It's not always easy because you read all those things and new titles every day. It's like, what? More? Oh. And it overwhelms us. So they said what's also important is to, even amidst all this chaos and turbulence, find the sacred space of solitude, find a pure space in nature, even if there's nothing else like a park, but it's a space there that's really pure. Or if you have a house, when you have your own little reservoir of nature there. But this video is not about that. Everyone can create a beautiful space if they have their own house, you know, with this awareness. We're supposed to preserve now nature that is wild. That's wildlife, because even if you live in a house, where do you get your water, right? You don't have a waterfall there. You don't have a mountain reserve or a natural water spring. Unless you're really lucky, you have a huge piece of land. But I'm saying is, it's not just what's happening in our own corner, in our backyard. This is bigger. This is when you experience your sanctity, like that sanctuary place. It's very important. But we have to carry that energy of that sanctity into the living world. So I go in many places, and sometimes I see beautiful nature and it's still intact, and sometimes I see devastation and I say, oh my gosh. And then when I do, I remember, well, if messages are repeating themselves, then there's something for me to do. And a lot of times it will be energetically what I need to channel. And you know, sometimes I get from people these messages, well, thank you for all you do for the planet. I'm just doing what I'm assigned to do, but I'm not doing anything for anyone else. That's the thing. People sometimes see other people, like I said, that's the problem. Well, look at these beautiful activists or these inventors, what they're doing. Oh, we're good, we're in safe hands. But imagine if everyone did their own part, their own contribution, whatever it is, when they're inspired through that great divine synchronicity and that divine sourceness, then there'd be so much creativity. And that's the problem. That passivity is not divine creativity, because it's a product of that distortion, which means there's a separateness there, separation from source, and therefore from nature. It's the same thing. You cut off both direction. It's what it is. So don't be that admiration kind of you know, when you place your source of admiration upon other people, you say you are so inspiring. Become that source of inspiration. You know, it's one thing to thank me or someone else who does their part, but it's something totally different when you do your own part. And there's a whole lot of people now that are so absorbed in their own spiritual evolution, and I understand it takes sometimes quite a lot of work. But our spiritual evolution means nothing if we are living in a world that's devastated, you know, that's been so hijacked by the negative expressions that we've just said, oh, wait a minute, when did that happen? Oh, I was kind of absent. Well, and when you witness things like I do, it means I'm not absent. I'm taking notice. I'm paying attention all the time. I'm always outside for a reason. And sometimes people think, well, you're just having fun outside. No, I'm not. Trust me. It's not always all fun. I have to literally have days when I just unplug and I go somewhere, you know, like in the mountains. This is when I get to see the bigger picture vista from high above, and I see this bigger picture and I say, you know, my heart needs that feeling of peace and centeredness, you know, amongst everything I'm witnessing every day. You know, village can be crazy. It's like in the past, villages were remote, and cities, maybe when they started to explode, they were kind of intense. But now it's wherever there's civilization, they're trying to make it like you have to have everything. You have to have high-tech internet, high-wire this, high-wire that. People don't even think anymore. Look, this is the Alps. You have to get used to, you know, maybe you don't have everything. Well, if it's a touristic spot, we got to make it like this and that, and we have to compete. This competition, you know, if you've seen what I do sometimes with our people, you know, it's like every nation has its challenges, but our people, sometimes they're so egotistical. They're like bragging about in these articles, like, oh, our country won, this city won the best ecotouristic or this touristic whatever kind of got this reward. It's like, it's all about rewards and what you show on the outside, but when you take one look around and you see what we're truly doing, we're not being really, you know, loving with nature. So it's all on paper, right? And as we know, paper can withstand anything, but in truth, when you go take a walk into depth, into the forests with the lands, you know, it's how it is. So anyway, guys, it is what it is. I was sharing this for those of you who are somehow invested, who love nature, who are guided to your own part. We all do that. Don't forget, this message is more from me. It's not like channeled directly, because I've already, you know, been channeling it as I was walking. So doing it with my eyes open this time, and every time something new. Please treat the planet with such love, because even when you witness things like that, still, you know, maintain the balance. Recently I said that it's up for me to stay neutral. And then someone said, well, we have to be active this way. And I didn't mean neutral in a way. Neutral is not the same as passive. I was actually talking about that I stay in my balance. When I witness things like that, you know, everyone can get quickly out of balance when you're deeply empathic. So that level of neutrality will actually align you with, okay, what can I do? And even if you feel powerless, I can do this and that. First source, always turn to the energetic work. Do that first and see what you're guided to do after. And, you know, eliminate that idea that we're powerless, that we can't do and change anything, especially when the right people and the right ingredients come together. So, life force work, life force mastery, you know where you can find my courses and that, so that your divine intelligence in your body will grow. And this is how you'll get to assist more, instead of just thanking those of us who do that already. So, you know, I love you guys. If you feel inclined, you can share these messages. If not, that's fine as well. I still love you. I love everyone. I just do that not for the people. I do it for the love of all life, not just human life. It's all one giant ecosystem of consciousness. It's all alive. It's all one big consciousness identity. As always, with so much love, wisdom, and power, take care of yourselves and nature, of course. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. magical.